Located in the heart of Boreham Wood, Elstree Studios have become one of the busiest and most historically important film and production venues in the UK. Famous for such iconic and popular films such as Star Wars and Indiana Jones, the studios are currently undergoing a multi-million-pound development, the first of its kind in over 15 years. This work will increase the size of the studios by 25%, a big change from the 1990s when their doors were shut and 12 acres of their property were demolished to be replaced by a Tesco car park. I'm Rudra Sachdev, and this is the story of the rise, the fall and the resurrection of Britain's Hollywood. Before Elstree Studios, there were Neptune Studios, a small company opened in 1914 with a windowless stage that relied entirely on electricity from a gas-powered generator for lighting. Based in Boreham Wood, these studios were ideally located away from the smoke of the city, yet well connected due to roads and the rail station. In 1925, two young film producers, Herbert Wilcox and J.D. Williams, bought the company and changed its name to Elstree Studios, because in that time, unlike now, Elstree was much more well known than Boreham Wood. However, they quickly sold the company to a Scotsman called John Maxwell, who would start the film company, British International Pictures, at the studios. The first films they produced were Madame Pompadour in 1927 and The White Sheikh in 1928. In 1929, the famous director Alfred Hitchcock used the studios to make Blackmail, the first film in the UK with talking. The 1930s were a decade of huge ups and downs for the studios. By 1939, they had produced over 200 films and hosted important guests, including American film star Charlie Chaplin and 3 different British kings, Edward VIII, George V and George VI. Unfortunately, a fire in 1936 caused major damage, and in 1939 they stopped filming altogether due to World War II. The half-century following the war was one of change and growth for Elstree Studios. Warner Bros. Took over and expanded them in 1946, and in the following years many famous actors could be found on Elstree stages, including Gregory Peck, Audrey Hepburn, and future US President Ronald Reagan. In the 1970s, arguably at the beginning of the studio's golden age, they saw the production of several classic motion pictures, including Murder on the Orient Express in 1974, starring Ingrid Bergman, Sean Connery, and Anthony Perkins. George Lucas made his first 3 Star Wars movies, A New Hope in 1977, The Empire Strikes Back in 1980, and The Return of the Jedi in 1983. Director Steven Spielberg came to Elstree in 1980 to produce Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, and returned 3 years later for The Temple of Doom, and again in 1988 for The Last Crusade. And of course, Stanley Kubrick produced The Shining in 1980, starring Jack Nicholson. The studio's reputation for movie magic was sealed. However, despite their success, Elstree Studios would have a rocky road ahead. In the early 90s, they were sold to George Walker. He quickly demolished 12 acres of the studios and sold them to Tesco. In 1993, he closed them altogether and sold off their equipment. Elstree Studios had been destroyed. For 3 years, the studios remained shut. Luckily, the Hertfordshire Council came to their rescue and sued Mr. Walker. They won their case, and Elstree Studios became the property of the local community. It took millions of pounds to restore them and to build 2 new sound stages, which were opened by Prince Charles in 1999. Today, they are again one of the UK's top TV and film studios, with recent hits including Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, The King's Speech, the animated movie Paddington Bear, and the TV sensation Strictly Come Dancing.
My name is Maurice Bright. I'm leader of Hertsmere Borough Council and the chairman of the board of directors at Elstree Studios. Well, I've been involved with Elstree Studios for quite a few years now. I became a councillor back in 1999. Before that time, I was a reporter, a journalist, and when the studios were having problems in the 1990s, looks like they were going to close, I was reporting on that. So I was already going to Elstree before I became a councillor. Then I became a councillor in 99, and a few years later started to become more involved with the studios. And in 2007 they asked me to become the chairman. That means to oversee the running of the studios. I don't run it. We have a team of experts from the industry to run the studios, but myself as leader of the council with other councillors strategically look at how the studios is running, because all the money that comes out, all the profit that's made, gets put back to the council to pay for local services. Yeah. So it's important that we understand that the studios can make as much as it can, because that helps benefit the people who live in Hertsmere. And what we've been doing over recent years is spending money on refurbishing the older parts of the building and also looking after the sound stages. And so we are looking at the moment at building 2 new sound stages if we can. We've got some space at the back. There was a program called Big Brother that had a set there for 16 years. That's now gone. So we're looking to build on 2 new sound stages. And the rest of the site, we've been spending money over the last 5 to 10 years to make sure that it's very much fit for purpose and is able to take the studios forward and meet our clients' needs for the next generation of film and television makers, games makers and musicians. The first 3 Indiana Jones films were made at Elstree Studios, and the very first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's this big scene where Indy has to be in a pit full of snakes, and it's very scary when you watch it, and they had to use real live snakes. And the producer and director, Steven Spielberg, the director, said, right, let's bring a load of snakes in. They brought about 4,500 snakes in, all different sizes, small, large, brought them all in. Had a look, said, you know what, it's not enough, we need more. In the end, they had 6,000 snakes on a stage in Elstree Studios, right, filming with Harrison Ford. Did all the shooting, everything went fine. At the end of it, got all the actors off, collected all the snakes, and they only found about 5,000. So they reckon that about 1,000 snakes escaped. They reckon they slithered off, they went down the drains. And to this day, 40 years later, some people who live in the area, still when they go to the toilet, they lift up the toilet seat in Bournemouth just to check that there isn't one in the drains. But it's honestly true, they lost many, many hundreds of snakes that just slithered away. That's one of the funny things that's happened over many years at Elstree. The biggest problem is we've had so many clients, we've been so busy, we haven't had enough space. So we are building and planning to build more stages, hopefully 2 new stages in the next 18 months, to allow for those people that want to use them. So when I say challenges, they're very positive challenges. They're all things that lead to good results. It doesn't have to be negative, and we're very excited about the future for Elstree Studios. The fact is that those studios belong to the people of Hertsmere. They are owned by the council, and the council is effectively elected by the people. And that means that any money that comes in, all the profits that come in, as I've mentioned to you before, doesn't get given to shareholders or doesn't go to the bank. There's no debt. It all gets handed over to the council, who are then able to provide services. And that means a lot, because we pick up people's bins, we look after their planning matters, environmental health. We have 60 different services that we provide, and it means that 20%, 1/5 of the council tax in Hertsmere, for everyone in Hertsmere, not just Bournemouth or Elstree, the whole of Hertsmere, 100,000 people, 1/5 of their council tax is paid for by the studios. So it's not just about a place where film and television is made, and music and games, but it's actually about saying the money that comes from that pays for very important services as well. So it's a double win. Well, thank you for having me, and for being so enthusiastic yourself about such an important part of where we live, Elstree Studios. I was delighted to be here. Thank you very much.
Despite its name, Elstree Studios is at the heart and soul of Boreham Wood. Once only a small village at the outskirts of London, people now think of the area as a place where adventures are born and dreams come true. And With the studios currently undergoing another expansion, who can say what exciting and wonderful programs will be coming out in the near future? I, for one, can't wait to find out. I'm Rudra Sachdev, and this has been the rise, the fall, and the resurrection of Britain's Hollywood.